All right, let's get right into it. We're going to unpack one of the most incredible stories of nation building in modern history, the creation of India's constitution. And believe me, this isn't just a story about some dry legal document. It's the story of how a nation was literally pieced together from chaos and given a soul. I want you to just picture this for a second. It's 1947. A brand new country is born, but it's completely fractured. We're talking about a land of mind-boggling diversity, scarred by centuries of colonial rule and the fresh, raw wounds of a violent partition. So the question facing its leaders was just massive. How do you even begin to unite a nation like that? And the challenges, they were absolutely staggering. You had the economic and psychological baggage of colonialism. You had the horrific communal violence of partition that tore families apart and displaced millions. And woven through all of that was this incredible tapestry of countless languages, religions, and cultures. Honestly, the task looked just about impossible. So, to answer that monumental question, the nation's leaders knew they had to do more than just, set up a government. Their goal was so much bigger. They wanted to transform India from a colonial subject into a sovereign democratic republic. They had to forge a whole new identity right out of the chaos. So, who were these architects? Who was tasked with this Herculean effort? Well, they were the members of the Constituent Assembly. And these weren't just politicians. They were thinkers, lawyers, visionaries, really some of the best minds from every single corner of the nation, representing its incredible diversity. Now, this road to a republic, it was a marathon, not a sprint. It all started back in 1946. But then almost immediately, everything was reshaped by the painful reality of partition in 1947. The Assembly had to reform, now with 299 members, and they created its most critical part, the drafting committee. After nearly 3 years of nonstop work, the Constitution was adopted in late 49 and finally came into force on January 26, 1950, the day we all know and celebrate as Republic Day. And guiding this entire massive process was the steady hand of Dr. Rajendra Prasad. He was the permanent president of the Assembly. He was the one who made sure that this incredibly diverse group of people, with all their different ideas, could actually work together towards one common goal. And right at the heart of it all, the chairman of the drafting committee was Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. He is called the chief architect for a very, very good reason. His legal brilliance, his absolute unwavering focus on social justice, and his fierce commitment to protecting the rights of minorities, all of that was just fundamental to the final document. Okay, now let's try to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this task. Forging a democratic blueprint for hundreds of millions of people, that is an unbelievably complex job. 2 years, 11 months, and 18 days. Just let that sink in. That's how long it took. This wasn't some rushed job. It was this incredibly deliberate, thoughtful, and totally exhaustive effort to get every single detail right. Over those 3 years, the Assembly held 11 marathon sessions. And we're not talking about simple meetings here. These were intense periods of debate, discussion, and deliberation where every single clause was picked apart and scrutinized. And if you want proof of just how democratic this whole thing was, get this. More than 2,000 amendments were proposed and debated. This shows it wasn't some top-down thing. It was a real bottoms-up effort where every voice had a chance to be heard, and every idea was put to the test. One of the biggest tug-of-wars was about the very nature of India's government. Should power be concentrated in a strong central government to keep the country unified, or should states have more power, more autonomy? The final constitution, well, it was a masterclass in compromise. It created this unique federal structure with a strong center, but with real powers for the states. A true balancing act. And no, the debates didn't stop there, not by a long shot. They wrestled with everything. What are the fundamental rights of a citizen? How do we protect minorities? Should there be a uniform civil code for everyone? What should the national language be? And how do we build in social justice through affirmative action or reservations? Huge questions. So you might be wondering, where did all these ideas for this grand blueprint actually come from? Well, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, the architects were both pragmatic and brilliant. They looked at the great democracies around the world for inspiration. They essentially went shopping for the best democratic ideas out there. They borrowed things like the parliamentary system from the UK and the whole idea of fundamental rights from the US. From Ireland, they got the concept of directive principles, which are basically guidelines for future governments. From Canada, the federal structure with a strong center. From Australia, the idea of a concurrent list. But, and this is the most important part, they didn't just copy-paste. They took every single one of these ideas and adapted them to fit India's unique social and cultural fabric. But beyond all the borrowed structures, beyond all the legal frameworks, if you really want to find the true heart of the document, its uniquely Indian soul, you have to look no further than its preamble. The preamble is really a promise. It lays out the core values, the very vision for the new republic. Justice for everyone, not just in the courts, but in their social and economic lives. Liberty of thought, expression, belief, equality of status and opportunity, and maybe most important of all, fraternity, this idea of a common brotherhood to hold the nation together. It defined what modern India was meant to be. So, after all that work, what was the final result? Well, it wasn't just a rulebook for the time. It was designed to be a living document, a blueprint to guide the nation for generations to come. And what they created was, literally, the world's longest written constitution. When it was first written, it had 395 articles and 8 schedules. That alone tells you just how complex the nation was and how thorough its authors were trying to be. And this is such a crucial concept to get. The Indian Constitution is called a living document because it was never meant to be frozen in time. Its architects brilliantly built in ways for it to be amended and reinterpreted by future generations. So as society changes, the Constitution can evolve right along with it, ensuring it stays relevant. And its legacy? Well, it's just profound. It laid the foundation for a stable parliamentary democracy. It legally abolished the practice of untouchability, which was a revolutionary social move. It guaranteed every single citizen equality before the law and created pathways for affirmative action to help uplift disadvantaged groups. This thing wasn't just a political document. It was a tool for a social revolution. I want to end with this really powerful quote from Dr. Ambedkar. It's such a profound reminder. The Constitution gives us the blueprint, the ideals, the framework, but its ultimate success, its ability to actually deliver on its promises, that doesn't rest on the paper it's written on. It rests on the people who are called to uphold its spirit, generation after generation. It really leaves us with a question, doesn't it? How is that responsibility being shouldered today?